According to a report from motorsport.com, defending MotoGP world champion Jorge Martin's injuries suffered during last weekend's Qatar Grand Prix were more serious than we thought. On Sunday's episode of Grid Live Wrap-Up a few days ago, we mentioned that Simon Patterson's initial report of Martin breaking 6 ribs and suffering hemothorax, aka a collapsed lung. Now, since then, we've learned that Martin has 11 broken ribs and had a drainage tube inserted into his right side, with a source telling motorsport.com that he's in a lot of pain and the tube is bothering him. Now, sources also told them that Martin might have to stay in hospital in Qatar for about 2 or 3 weeks until he's well enough to fly home to Spain. A doctor who regularly treats MotoGP riders added that he expects Martin to miss at least 3 months of racing. The link to this article is in the video description below and graphic courtesy of MotoGP. Personally, having a hemothorax before, I can tell you how painful that is. And I didn't have any broken ribs added to that. I had 2. But 11 and a drainage tube, plus that, I don't know how on earth he is coping. But this is sort of where it all comes down, isn't it? He came back too soon. And Matt, standing with you, how concerning is this report about the seriousness of Martin's injuries? And should Aprilia consider shutting him down for the rest of the 2025 MotoGP season?
And we talked about it last week, didn't we? The worst possible outcome was for this to happen to Jorge over the weekend, whether it be in practice or, as it turned out, in the race itself. Horrible injuries, and let's send our best wishes to him, because the picture he posted on Twitter or Instagram, wherever it was, I've seen it doing the rounds of him in his hospital bed in Qatar, is not nice, all bandaged up and tubes everywhere and all sorts of things. So we wish our best to Jorge for a speedy recovery. But what was it you said, Josh, on the show? In the MotoGP sort of championship run-in last year, this is the opportunity these guys have got. It was him and Pecco with Mark out of the... He got his championship, and ever since that day when he came out of the box as the Martinator and shot the box to get the helmet out at Barcelona, it's just gone. It's just terribly for the poor guy. Sit him out for the rest of the year, maybe? I don't know. I'm sure that... Dorna/MotoGP will want him back as soon as possible for commercial reasons. They want their champion to be on the television and the number 1 plate or whatever to be, this is our world champion. But if he's wandering around with IVs and on crutches, and it's not a great look, is it? And we said last week when we were talking about Jorge coming back, Aprilia have not had a great start to the season. Bezzecchi's not been on the pace. Lorenzo Salvadori's come in to replace Martin and as the test rider. He's never going to be, particularly on the speed of the rest of the field, and it has been sort of languishing in that back quarter of the field for most of the season in terms of his race pace. And he's going to have a lot of work to do, like Lorenzo Salvadori, over the next couple of months. We got Jerez next weekend, then it's Le Mans, Mugello coming up. We get into the European races now. They come thick and fast. So, going to be interesting to see what they do. Will they stick with Salvadori? Will they try and poach someone up from Moto2, perhaps? Will that work? The way it's going, you would say perhaps that's probably not such a bad, that's probably a bad idea, because that the first Aprilia, the second in the garage there alongside Bezzecchi, seems to have some sort of hex on it at the moment.
Yeah, real hate to see this situation happen with Jorge Martin. And I echo what you said, Matt. Definitely, we're going to be thinking about him and wishing him a speedy recovery, because he already, suffered 2 major injuries before this, and he had to have surgery twice. And then coming back from that, and you get injured again in the worst possible way. This was, like you said, this is the worst case scenario that could have happened for Jorge Martin. And we were hoping that it wouldn't happen, but unfortunately, it did. When he announced he was coming back and wasn't 100%. I know we just talked about this, leading up to the injury that happened. I was thinking maybe it's not the best idea to be racing when you're not at 100% or close to 100%. And I think we saw throughout the weekend, he was having a tough time, but he was really gutting out, trying to tough it out, make it through the race weekend, and try to get more laps on the Aprilia and build up pace throughout the weekend. And obviously, when the race came around, wasn't really running particularly well, but also the Aprilia bike, is definitely on a different level than the Ducati, which is on a completely different zip code. So Martin was just doing the best that he could on the bike that he was on, just making laps and trying to do the best he can to get through any pain that he was feeling, from the recovery of the surgeries. And then down he goes like that. It was a really scary scene there to see him down in a lot of pain like that. And 6 broken ribs was not good at all. And then to see the report that they upgraded it to 11 broken ribs, that is absolutely brutal. And then a collapsed lung to go on top of that. And Matt, the picture you're talking about, I saw that on Jorge's Instagram page. Had a towel over his face. Then he was hooked up to this machine and that machine. Just such an awful scene to see him in that situation. So I can't imagine that he's going to be in a lot of pain for a while. And it sucks to hear, that he's going to probably have to be in the hospital for 2 to 3 weeks before he's able to fly. Because if you try to fly home with the type of injury you have now, that would not be a wise decision at all. So want to make sure that he's healthy enough to travel home and continue rehab from there. And Josh, the last part of that question asks, should Aprilia consider sitting him out the rest of the season? This may be considered a hot take, but I think they should. Like, there's really no point in trying to put him out there at this point, given the fact that the Aprilia bike, is not really the best. I would probably focus on developing the bike for 2026 and get a fully healthy Jorge Martin ready to go, because at this point he's 100% definitely not going to defend his world championship, and then he's probably not gonna be competing, for podiums and race wins if he were to come back later on in the season. So like, what's the point of putting someone out there when they're not 100%? But to the point you made, Matt, it would not be a surprise if he returns later in the year, due to commercial reasons. But I feel like Jorge Martin should do the smart thing and make sure he's 100% healthy and get back to where he used to be health wise. Because right now, I just don't see any. When you take out all the business related factors to it, I don't see any point for him to come back this year at all.
Yeah, I'm just having a quick look to see if any news had come through from Aprilia. I have not sadly seen any updates since what we had yesterday. Usually they would keep us updated if there was any surgeries or any health updates, but nothing has come through on the WhatsApp chain as well. So if anything happens, I'll keep you updated on that. But we send our best to Jorge Martin, who even I said at the time, arguably it was the wrong decision to come back and try Qatar, which is the hardest race of the year with the heat, the fact it's a flat circuit, and you need to use your arms a lot on that circuit, and it was the wrong choice. So let's hope he recovers quickly and gets back to winning race ASAP, but does it in his own time. And for God's sake, heal, man, heal.